into it today. We are ready to get into it today. Today, we're going to be talking about an expression that I hate to my very soul. But it's going to be a couple minutes before we get into the show. So as you tune in, make sure to tag somebody in the comments. Make sure to tag somebody to let them know that you're here. Let them know that they should be tuning into the show as well. We're going to be talking about an expression today, I don't have time. And we're going to be talking about that in about a minute and a half. We're going to be talking about why, first of all, that's bullshit. And second of all, how to actually find the time and how to understand just how much time you actually have. But before we do that, make sure to tag somebody. Make sure to tag somebody to let them know that the show is on. Let them know that they should be hearing this message as well. Yes, wild man, absolutely. Everyone has time. So if you train with somebody, if you know somebody, if you've been around somebody who you always hear using that expression and it makes you as crazy as it makes me, make sure to tag them so I can yell at them a little bit and so that I can make sure to really lay out just how much time you have and how to find it. But thank you all for tuning in. As you come in, make sure to tag somebody in the comments. Let them know that let them know that the podcast is live. Let them know what we're talking about and let them know that they need to hear this message. Really kind of a subtle way to call somebody out if they feel like it's needed. But a quick 30 seconds, and I'm just going to share a quick win of mine as well before we get into the show. I just actually got home from my gym, had a fantastic talk with an athlete of mine who's been going through some pretty difficult stuff, and just really inspiring talk about, what we can actually do with our lives, the impact that we can actually have on the world. And yeah, man, he knows who he is. And yeah, man, I just wanted to say, if you're here, if you're listening, I appreciate you. But let's get into the show. So today we are talking about the just horrid expression, I don't have time. And we're going to get into the show now in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we're going to be talking about an expression that I hear far too often and I hear far too many people say, and that is, I don't have time. So I always like to start the week off with a little bit of work on the mindset, and this is just one thing that's been on my mind for quite a long time now, because really and truly, it's something I hear so many people say, and it's something I hear so many people use as an excuse not to commit to their careers, not to commit to goals that they have set for themselves. In one conversation, they talk about all these amazing things they're going to achieve. They talk about, these levels that they're going to reach in their career somehow. They talk about all these great things that their future holds for them. And in the next breath, they're talking about not having time to go to the gym, or they're talking about not having time to, train, or not having time to meal prep, or not having time for all these things that you just need to be doing if you're going to succeed at anything in life, especially need to be doing if you're going to be succeeding in a sport. And so today we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about why people feel they don't have time. We're going to talk about why that's just wrong. And we're going to talk about how you can start to recognize the fact that you do have time and how you can start to maximize that time. And before getting into it, I will 100% openly and honestly admit this is not something that I claim to be a master at. I am still always working on trying to master my own time, always working on trying to maximize my days to a new level. But it is something that I've really come to realize about myself and about so many people around me in the past years, that, we use that excuse. We talk about not having time, being too busy for things, when it just isn't true. So why do people feel like they don't have time to meal prep or to train or to do these other things that they know they need to be doing in order to be successful in their careers? The #1 reason that I've found is priorities. And I'll use myself as a prime example of these. In the past, I often would use that excuse. I would often say, I would push harder in the business that I'm trying to grow, but I don't have time for anything else. I'm already so busy. I'm already doing so much. I just don't have time. And then I started actually looking at my days, and I started realizing that I was watching like 2 hours of TV every single day. And if I was trying to say that I didn't have time to pursue new levels in my business, how was I going to be saying that while also watching 2 to 3 hours of TV in a day? And then, so the big thing here is priorities. If you are going to be successful in anything, it needs to be a high priority in your life. Now, when it comes to sports specifically, the way I want you to think about it is, what are the things you need to do in order to make sure that you're successful in your sport? The way I look at it with a lot of my athletes is making sure you're not leaving holes in the armor. And what I mean when I say that is, what are those things you absolutely need to be doing in order to make sure that you're going to be successful? So number one, meal prepping. You need proper fuel going into your body. If you don't have the right fuel going into your body, you're not going to be able to get as much out of your training. If you're not getting as much out of your training, you're not making the progress that you should be able to make. Number two, strength and conditioning. I know this sounds biased being a strength and conditioning coach, but it's just true. If you're not lifting weights, if you're not doing plows, if you're not doing that extra training on top of your skill work, you are leaving a massive hole in the armor. What do I mean when I say that? You can be the most skilled athlete specific to your sport out there. But if you're weak, if you're slow, and you can't push a pace, you're going to lose more often than you're going to win. Now, by adding in strength and conditioning work, you're going to start building up the strength you need, building up the power you need, and continuing to work on your speed and continuing to work on your ability to push a pace. And as a result, you're going to be able to implement the skill set that you have. Because so many athletes out there have all the skills in the world. Their skill set is great, but they don't have the ability to implement it in competition because their opponent can overpower them. So, strength and conditioning, another essential area to being successful in a sport. Number three, skill set. On the same note as what I was mentioning about the skills, if you are the fastest, strongest, most explosive athlete out there, but you suck at the sport, still not going to be successful. You still need the skill set, and it's about trying to find the balance of how much skill work and how much strength and conditioning you need at any given time in your career. The next one is recovery, because I've used this analogy countless times on this show, but if you are an athlete and you are constantly pushing yourself, never taking a day off, never resting, never recovering, you're going to hit a point where your body just breaks down. The analogy I always like to use, it's like driving a car on a road trip. If you are constantly driving the car and you're never getting out of the car and you're just cruising down the highway and you never stop for gas because you're afraid that if you stop for gas, you're going to fall behind, you're going to hit a point where the car is empty, and you're going to hit a point where the car breaks down. And if you let yourself get to that point, that's where burnout happens. That's where injuries happen. And in turn, by pushing yourself too hard, you're actually taking away from your career, not helping it. So the next one there is recovery. And then the final area that I've come up with that you need in order to be successful in your sport is a strong mind. And this is something that takes work. This is something that so often gets overlooked because athletes are spending all this time on their skill set, all this time on their strength and conditioning work, all this time everywhere else. They forget to work on one of the most important areas, which is their mindset. Because again, you can be a very high level athlete. You can be very strong, fast, powerful, explosive, very skilled. But if you can't do it under pressure, you're going to run into trouble. If you can't battle through adversity, you're going to run into trouble. There are so many areas that the mindset comes into play. And so this is something that in your training, you cannot overlook. So with all of these things, with all of these pieces of the armor in order to create a successful athlete, all of these areas that you need to be strong in order to succeed at higher levels, how do we fit all of them in? Because I'm sure there are some people listening to this now that are saying, that's great. We need to take care of our nutrition, our strength and conditioning, our skill set, our recovery, our mindset, but you don't understand. I've got a lot going on. I've got family commitments, I've got school, I've got work, I've got all these other things that I need to do. So I can't do that. I don't have time to work on all those things. And if that's you, this next part is going to be extremely important for you to listen to. This next part is going to be the key, the unlock, the thing that helps you actually realize how much time you do have, and excuse me, and the thing that makes you realize how to actually maximize your time. So the number one thing that I want you guys to think about here is organization. So if you're hearing all of these priorities that you need to have in order to succeed at a high level, and you're going, there's no way I have time to do all that, there's no way that I can fit all those things in, the number one thing you need to do is organize your life. Because all of these things, when you actually break it down, do not require as much time as you think they do. You're thinking, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas that you need to spend time on every single week. So you're thinking this is going to be a huge commitment. It's going to take tons of your time. You're never going to have time for anything else. But if you really break it down and organize yourself, you've got way more time for these other things than you think you do. So the first thing you're going to do in order to organize yourself here is write down all of those things, all of those 5 areas we talked about: nutrition, strength and conditioning, skills training, recovery, and mindset. And if you have all 5 of those things written down, now you can start to make a plan. So as an example, for myself, my mindset work is a 10-minute meditation every morning. 10 minutes, that's all it takes. But because I've organized it, that is the first thing that I'm doing when I wake up in the morning. So when I wake up in the morning, I have a 10-minute meditation routine that helps get my mind right and get my day started off on the right foot. Now, simply by doing that, I get mindset work in every single day. Could I be doing more? Absolutely. But the goal isn't to just be the one who is doing the most. The goal is to continually improve. The goal is to improve one day at a time, like it's written right on my sweater here. And so in order to do that, you don't need to load your whole day up with hours and hours and hours of work. You need to find the right balance, and you need to figure out how you can do it consistently. So you've got those 5 areas written down. Now you can start to plan out how you're going to work on them. When it comes to meal prepping, keep yourself organized and find 2 days per week where you can take an hour and a half out of your day to do groceries, get them home, cook them, pack them in containers, and throw them in the fridge. That way, you've got your meals ready and you don't have to worry about it every single day. So now right away, it's taking less time. And if it's taking less time, it's keeping you more organized. That's leaving more time for the other areas that are going to take up more time. When it comes to training, when it comes to your skills training, think about right now the minimum amount that you need every week. So we're talking specifically to combat sports athletes, let's say MMA. If you've got a very large background in striking and you're trying to be an MMA fighter, let's say absolute minimum, you need 1 striking class and 2 grappling classes per week and a sparring session. So you've got those 4 sessions booked out. You know what days they are. You know what times they start. You know how long it takes you to get to the gym. Again, we're organized. We're ready to go. Now, when it comes to strength and conditioning, same idea. When the rest of your week is written out, when you've got those times all scheduled out into your week, look at what you've got left. Look at the days you have left. Look at the times you have left. When can you fit those sessions in? If you're looking at your calendar now and you're going, shit, it's too booked up. There's no way. I don't have space. I don't have time. Now, can you wake up an hour earlier 2 days of the week? Can you wake up an hour earlier 2 days of the week? I know that's not an easy thing to do. I know that's not a fun thing to do necessarily, but think about it. You're trying to be a professional athlete. You're trying to make thousands and thousands of thousands, if not millions of dollars, competing in a sport. You've got to do some shit that's not easy along the way to get there. Plain and simple. You've got to do some shit that's not easy along the way to get there. And if you're not willing to do that, this career is not for you. So now I ask you again, can you wake up an hour earlier 2 days of the week? Yes? Great. That's where you can fit in your strength and conditioning sessions. So, you see what I'm saying here? As far as creating that schedule, as far as creating that calendar, as far as creating that week that is actually going to lead you to being more successful. Now, when you've got it planned out, when you've got it organized, you can better understand it, you can better plan it out, and in turn, you're going to have time to fit more things in because when you wake up, you're not spending the first 30 minutes of your day asking yourself, oh no, how do I fit this all in? Immediately, you're looking and you're saying, oh, when I wake up, I do my morning meditation. After I finish my morning meditation, I eat breakfast. After I eat breakfast, I've got my first training session. After my first training session, and you've got your whole day planned out. So you can get right to it and you can save yourself that extra amount of time. Now, the other reason that I see people saying that they don't have time is plain and simple a lack of awareness. The amount of people that tell me they don't have time for strength and conditioning work. And when I actually get them to look at their day, they're watching 3 hours of TV every night, or they're waking up at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, or, they've got so many other things that they're doing, wasting time, that really they have it right there. They have the time there that they need, but they're just not using it in the right areas. And if you have the time, but you're not using it in the right areas, that's not an issue of not having the time. That's an issue, back to what we were talking about before, about priorities. That's an issue of how you're spending your time, not about how much time you have. So the next thing, excuse me, that I want you to do is I want you to audit your day. I want you to look through your day and ask yourself honestly, where am I wasting time? This can be things like scrolling on your phone. It feels like you're not wasting very much time when you do it, but the amount of times you actually take your phone out of your pocket and spend 2 minutes scrolling through something, or 5 or 10 or 20 minutes scrolling through something through the day adds up. So if you start being aware of how much you're scrolling on your phone and you realize what a habit it actually is and how much time you're actually wasting, how do you get away from that? When you wake up in the morning, don't touch your phone for the first hour. Anything that anyone is asking you about, anything that anyone is talking to you about can wait. So make sure you're not touching your phone for the first hour. Or when you go to the gym, turn your phone off. Don't allow it to be a distraction. And now that hour-long strength and conditioning session, instead of taking 2.5 hours from all the time scrolling on your phone, it's actually taking an hour, and you've saved yourself all that much more time. So the next thing you're going to do is audit your day. Take a really good hard look at where you waste time. And in turn, you can take a really good hard look at the time you do have that you're currently not prioritizing. And how do we fix it? So now we've gone through a bunch of ways to audit how much time we actually have, gone through a bunch of the common mistakes that people make in thinking that they don't have enough time. So how do we fix it? How do you go from the person who doesn't have time to the person who all of a sudden does have time, and in turn starts skyrocketing towards the goals they have for their career? A massive key right here that I'm going to give you is, plain and simple, your language. Next time you catch yourself saying, I don't have time, switch it. Instead of saying I don't have time, say, this just isn't a priority right now. Or say, watching TV is more of a priority right now than getting my training session in. Or watching TV is more of a priority right now than getting a good night's sleep to recover from my training session tomorrow. And just by saying that, even saying it right now as an example on a podcast, is making me a little bit queasy. Because again, these are things that we really do feel. We really feel like we don't have time. But as soon as you can switch that mindset, and instead of saying, I don't have time for strength and conditioning work today, when you're sitting and watching TV and you're saying, I don't have time to get to the gym for strength and conditioning work, sit there and say, watching TV is more of a priority than my future in this sport. Watching TV is more of a priority than getting to my strength and conditioning session, which is going to help me towards a better future in my sport. Or when you're sitting and scrolling on your phone, as soon as you catch yourself wasting some time, sit there and say, scrolling through cat videos on TikTok is more important to me than meal prepping this week. And just by making that switch, just by making that conscious decision of it's about priorities and it's not about time, is hopefully going to have the same effect on you as it did on me, which is it's hopefully going to make you sick and realize that if you actually want to be an athlete, you need to get your head out of your ass. You need to realize you do have time, and you need to realize that the cat videos and all of that kind of stuff that you waste time on during the day can wait. Because if you want to be a professional athlete, if you want to make your living competing in your sport, you've got to understand this is a difficult life. This is a difficult life. You're going to have to do things you don't want to do. You're going to have to do things that are difficult. You're not going to be able to relax, chill out, all of that stuff the same way as a lot of your friends are, because you're not trying to be like them. You're trying to be better than them. You're trying to do more with your life than them. And if that's truly what you want, understand how to audit your day, understand how to be more self-aware, and understand how to maximize your day in order to make the most amount of progress you can within any 24-hour period. Because we all have the same 24 hours in a day, but it's up to you what you do with it. So that is it. That is all. I hope you guys got some value from this. I hope you were able to take something away. If you were, I would love to know what it was. Make sure to drop a comment if you're here live, or if you're listening back to this on the podcast, watching on the YouTube channel, anything else like that. Make sure that you let me know what your biggest takeaways were from the show. If you haven't checked the show out before, make sure to take a look at www.elitedevelopmentpodcast.ca or check it out on any of the major podcast platforms. But that is it for me today. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll talk to you all again tomorrow.